A third batch of toxic material has now been shipped out for decommissioning. Syria recently missed several deadlines to hand over its chemicals, saying rebel activity is to blame. Let's get some reaction now from Jonathan Steele, a columnist for The Guardian newspaper, joining us live here on RT International. Jonathan, good to see you today. Thank you very much for coming on the programme this evening here with us. Syria maintains it will be able to meet the UN-backed roadmap. It will give up all of its chemical weapons by June. Is that looking realistic to you at this stage?
Yes, I think it is. I mean, it's 4.5 months away. That's quite a long time. And the UN diplomat in charge of this whole operation also thinks that it will be done by June the 30th, so that although they missed the deadlines, there's no real sense of alarm that they will miss it.
Now, certainly, though, some radical rebel factions have refused to recognise the ongoing disarmament deal. Is there any way possible, you think, for the rebels to get their hands on these chemical weapons? One might imagine armoured brigades delivering these to the coast to get onto the ships might stick out like a sore thumb.
Yes, I think that's very unlikely. I mean, and they are well guarded, but there are security problems. Obviously, the country's in the middle of a civil war. So, again, as the UN diplomat Sigrid Kaag said to the Security Council the other day, the reasons for the delay are security concerns, and that sounds quite legitimate and plausible.
Jonathan, peace talks have certainly hit another brick wall in Geneva. Neither side of the conflict making concessions here. What will it take, do you think, for them to truly come together?
Well, I think it'll take a realization on both sides that there is no military solution, that neither side can win. I mean, I think that's obvious to any independent observer. But, it's hard for sides to admit that they've spent all this money and treasure and lost lives for not getting victory. And so they still cling to that hope. But I think over time, I think with the UN pressure from Lakhdar Brahimi, and if the regional countries start convincing the government and the opposition that they must make a deal, then that would help. But it also means cutting back on arms supplies and all these jihadi fighters going in and stopping it being a proxy war and reverting to being what it should be, just an internal problem among Syrians.
Now, you referred to the UN envoy here to deal with what's going on in Syria, Lakhdar Brahimi. He's showing some optimism, as you mentioned a few moments ago, though the US Secretary of State, John Kerry, not showing such volumes of optimism. The fractured rebels or the radical Islamists inside Syria, they do not enjoy popular support. Do you think Downing Street and Washington, for that matter, do you think they're aware of this?
Oh, I think they're well aware of this. They're also well aware that there's fighting going on, and they're now trying to arm. The Americans have now restored their arms supplies to the rebels. They're trying to arm the so-called moderates so that they can fight not only the Assad government, but also the hardline jihadi al-Qaeda type fundamentalists. So they're well aware of it.
So you're saying that America has resumed shipping and funneling weapons to what you call the moderate rebels in Syria, but then it would seem fairly predictable that those kinds of weapons would fall right into the hands of the radicals. Well,
that's one reason why they briefly suspended the arms deliveries at the end of last year, because some of them had fallen into the hands of rebels, or they're even being sold. People just sell them. So that was a concern, but now I think the Americans are determined to resume the arms supplies in the hope that they can strengthen the so-called moderates.
Jonathan, many people are speculating about the future of Assad. Some already saying that he could have the same fate as Gaddafi or that of Saddam Hussein. What do you think the future holds for Assad?
I think it's highly dubious. It's very hard to know at the moment. There is a civil war, much more severe than anything in Libya, and quite different from Iraq. So we can't really look at those parallels. No, there has to be a negotiated settlement. The idea is to have a transitional government, and then maybe Assad will not be a candidate in the presidential elections or will resign at some point. But the crucial thing really shouldn't be to focus on one man and one personality and oversimplify it. There are different forces at work in Syria, and it's really important that some sort of concession and compromise is made between all those forces. It's a much bigger issue, much more terrible issue than the fate of one man.
Jonathan Steele, a columnist for The Guardian newspaper. Thank you very much indeed for spending some time with us here on RT International.